Eddie Dowling, the biographer of these personal reminiscences of Victor Herbert, feels that this series would not be complete without introducing Mr. Harold Sanford, the well-known musical conductor. Mr. Sanford was intimately associated with Victor Herbert over a period of 18 years, having been his concertmaster and arranger for a great many of Mr. Herbert's most successful operettas. Therefore, it gives me great pleasure to present Mr. Harold Sanford.
I never think of Victor Herbert or hear his name mentioned that my mind doesn't go back to the first night we met. I was pretty young, very hungry, and terribly discouraged. I was a musician and had come to New York from Boston with nothing but my violin and a determination to make New York sit up and take notice. After 8 weeks, I found that while New York was sitting up, it certainly hadn't taken any notice. But my landlord had. One day he noticed that I hadn't paid my bill for 3 weeks. He put me out and kept all my belongings except my violin. There wasn't a soul I could borrow from in New York, and I couldn't write home for money because they didn't have any too much for themselves. After wandering around all day, I was pretty desperate. To add to my misery, toward evening, a cold, blustery rain set in. About 10 that night, I had taken shelter in the doorway next to the lamp club when a taxi drew up. A tall, heavy-set man got out with a big bundle of music under his arm. While he was paying the driver, the music fell from his arm and the wind started to do all sorts of tricks with it. It scattered in all directions. I recognized Victor Herbert from his pictures and immediately set to work to gather up his music sheets. Finally, I got them all and handed them to him, soaking wet.
Oh, thanks very much.
Now, I'm afraid they're pretty well ruined, Mr. Herbert.
I should say they are. I don't know what I'm going to do now. I have a new play opening tomorrow night and a rehearsal in the morning.
Well, I'm a pretty good musician. I could copy those parts tonight and have them ready by morning.
You could, eh? Why, what have you been doing, my boy? Why, your clothes are soaking wet.
Well, I've been walking around a lot.
Where are you working?
I'm not working right now.
Where are you living?
Well,
Tell me the truth, my boy. Don't be afraid.
Well, I'm not living anywhere. I was put out of my room this morning. I've been out of work since I came to New York.
I thought so. Well, I've got to have that work done right away, so I'm going to take a chance on you. I'll get your room here at the club tonight. Copy that music and be at the Criterion Theater at 10 in the morning. First, let's have something to eat. You'll feel better with a good meal under your belt.
After eating, I felt better. We got in the room, and I worked all night on the music. The show was The Tattooed Man, and became one of his big hits. I was at the theater before 10, and he was there waiting for me.
Did you finish that music?
Yes, sir, here it is.
Good boy. That's a fine, neat-looking job. If you can play the violin as well as you write, you ought to be a good musician. Take your fiddle out and get in that orchestra.
Well, I got through the rehearsal all right, and he engaged me. From that time on, I was with Victor Herbert in every show he wrote. But 1910 was a bad year for me. My bank account was very low when I received a call from Victor telling me to report to the New York Theater for a new production, which turned out to be the highly successful Naughty Marietta. We went through the usual long rehearsal period, but I didn't mind because the music was so beautiful. One song in particular was a favorite of mine. It was the forerunner of this type of number. Perhaps you'll remember it.
We hunt for the wolf in the forest. We raided the pirates at sea. We heard the wind then we were out for adventure as anyone plainly can see. We smoked, we fight with the matches. We fought with the strike violent free. We were laughter on danger. We were known as the Rangers. And it makes my good comrade and me. Tramp along the highway. Tramp, the road is free. Lazy tramp along the highway. What is the blood are we?
about used up the last of my money getting through the long weeks of preparation. And the opening night, on arriving at the theater, I found a wire waiting, telling me that my sister had been hurt and to come home at once. The telegram upset me terribly. This urgent message made me fear the worst. I couldn't get a train for midnight and had no money to go anyway. It was time for the overture, and all I could think of was my sister. The theater was jammed, and the audience was a very distinguished one. In a moment, Mr. Herbert came into the pit. The audience recognized him and greeted him enthusiastically. Worried about my sister, I went through the overture in a daze. Soon Orville Harold was singing a song which is still famous.
Without any cause, believe me, I'm telling you truly. I'm gay without cause, and sad without cause. My spirits are truly unruly.
I was so upset that it showed in my work. After the first act, Mr. Herbert called me out of the pit.
What's the matter with you, my boy? You never played like that before.
Well, I've had a telegram from home about my sister, and I'm afraid that
I'm sorry, lad. Where's your home? Can you get there tonight?
it's in Northampton. I could get a train at midnight, but I haven't money enough to go.
Don't worry, my boy. As soon as the show's over, I'll give you enough money to see you through. Get on that train and go home. Stay with your sister as long as necessary, and your job will be waiting for you when you come back. Brace up now. We've got to go on with the show.
That talk certainly cheered me up. I was able to get through the rest of the performance without making any mistakes. At last we came to Madame Trentini's big number and the finale of the show. Glad to say that my sister recovered. And in a few days, I was able to return and take up my job. From that opening night, Victor Herbert was my idol. I was with him in every play he did after that. And to this day, I mentally thank that landlord for putting me out. He didn't realize it, but he was thrusting me into the arms of good fortune. Victor Herbert.
You have just heard another of the personal reminiscences of Victor Herbert. Your sponsor will inform you of the date of the next program in this series. This is Leland Lee announcing. This program was conceived and produced by famous artists of the air.